Hello, hello, hello. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. The other market overview live stream went a little longer than I thought. Mainly because Bob Iacchino jumped in the chat on that one and it threw everyone for a loop. By the way, hello, hello, hello. If you want to chat with Bob tomorrow and find out what he thinks about treasuries and other stuff, market overview, 3:30. He may be a couple minutes late because he's wrapping up something in the studio right at 4:30 Eastern. He's in Florida. So, but he will be joining unless some disaster happens. And if it happened tomorrow, then I'd have him on later in the week because we got all the testing done. So if you want to chat with Bob tomorrow as part of market overview and see what he has to say or pick his brains and get some feedback from him. Pending no disaster, he should be on tomorrow. Hey, Ken, welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, I hope everyone had a great trading day also. Wavy, of course, with Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. Shashi, well, what a day after 5-day pullback. Nice. Hey, Dan, Jet, Ken, I jumped on the 4-hour aggressive buy, 10:30.80, and was wondering if it's smarter to wait for the daily signal because the market's so volatile. I actually don't have a problem. I actually put in a 1-hour aggressive buy in Discord earlier this morning based off the NASDAQ price action, and it was very aggressive. But again, if you're in, don't turn anything into a losing position longer term. I definitely look to capture. Keep an eye on the NASDAQ. Again, we went through NASDAQ and also go through the market overview. Hear what I have to say on the broad market on NASDAQ and especially on at the end on notes and note yields. I'm watching for a pullback in note yields and a rally in the short-term notes, a short-term rally in the 10-year notes, which could lead to a continued rally in stuff like that. The overall market indices, I'm not surprised to see a little short-term bounce in here. We do have Fed governor speaking tomorrow and Powell's reconfirmation hearing. So I doubt they're going to say anything that are going to roil the markets even more, and they might even lean towards giving a little dovish undertone based off this recent sell-off. I don't think that's going to change their course of action, but I don't think they're going to say anything that they're going to intentionally try to trigger another downdraft in the markets. So as long as the markets don't get absolutely hammered tomorrow, we could also see a rally in Tesla putting in this little short-term bottom here. So keep that in mind overall. Where did this pull back to on the daily? Let's just see right here. See, we did. This is why you got to look at everything on the close. Dropping below the 62.5 on the market was horrible this morning until we got those momentum bars in the S&P and the NASDAQ. And I went over to the momentum bar trade in the S&P in the market overview. And that holds true for stocks. I'm not going to cover that again here. But if you want, watch that. Back above the 50% on that sell-off level. So short term, let's cover a couple things here. I'm not going to rehash everything. We had the gap down. Got to talk about a couple things though. We had the gap down. We know what we do with the gap play. Then we watch for the close above the 62.5. Here's the close above the 62.5. Does that mean it can't pull back? No, it can easily pull back. Technically, it's all bets are off if you get to new lows. If you want a shorter term thing, if you can't deal with that much risk, now it's going to lower your probabilities a bit. I'm just going to show you something I haven't shown before. Again, off the lows to that high that closed above there, just judge that and watch for the close below the 62.5. If you close below 62.5, you can always get out of that potential gap fill position as long as that holds. Now, that's not as reliable as the holding the lows, because why? This could come back down, put in a double bottom, and if it was a valid double bottom, still fill the gap easily. But if you want something in front of that level, put that kind of level also On other plays, this is just a reminder. As we rallied with the broad market, we did get some pretty decent momentum, and we got serious momentum bars in the S&P and NASDAQ, pulling back, no close below the 62.5, and then the rotation back up, which was a really nice entry pattern. Again, considering you already had the odds in your favor for a gap fill. So you can play these kind of things up with a rotation back up. You're not trying to buy this bar. But you start getting a rotation back up, especially here above the rotation zone again, you can easily play for the gap fill. Now the 1 hour play, by the way, there's a little 5 minute. This does qualify as a double bottom. Even with all this is considered one side of a bottom, two sides. And we started getting momentum in the broad market. And you see, here's why you do your profits at the double bottoms again. Coming up here, hitting the thing, and then rolling back down. So even if you weren't trading it, it's still good to put it on. Sorry, I forgot to change my camera. Put it back on with the targets so you can watch for a reaction back down, because you could always watch for that reaction back down with some momentum. Try to pick up that momentum move reversal and then get back in because it confirmed the higher price action. Here was the 1 hour aggressive buy signal that I did put in Discord. I said if we close above the high of this bar, it's an aggressive signal. We did. And by the way, when you take stuff like that, you can have pullbacks. The invalidator to that would be a close below that low. Until that happens, it's fair game, because I get messages. I saw your 1 hour buy signal and it pulled back. So markets don't trade straight up. As much as you want them to trade straight up, they trade in waves, or straight down, they trade in waves. So that's why you got to be prepared to, or if a 1 hour signal, you don't manage it on a 5 minute time frame. It's a 1 hour signal, just as you don't manage a daily signal on a 5 minute time frame. You can get the back and forth, especially with that 1 hour signal. Look where it's, running up, close, completely valid, right at the rotation zone on the 1 hour. What do you expect when you see a 1 hour rotation zone? Right closing below it. I tend to watch for the pullback, at least the first pullback, and then on a rotation back up, I start then targeting the other side. So if you didn't want to get in here because it was risk reward to risk is off, you can easily get in on a pullback, especially since you also had the confirmation on the gap, potential gap fill from earlier. You had that double bottom, you had all these potentially bullish signs, so you could take a shot with a tight stop. Not a tight stop like, okay, it can't pull back on a 5 minute, but even with that 62.5 level that I showed. If you had to keep a tighter stop, there you go. But the best stop is below the lows, though, because in case it comes back down to form a double. Just wanted, and then, then it was just grinding higher the rest of the day. Now, there's also, as Ken put in, there's above this 4 hour bar, there was, and above Friday's 4 hour bar, this triggered two buys right here. This double, by the way, is off from the daily double. This went too low. So we don't have that in there right now. We don't have any bottoming, and this is flat on the 4 hour. I'm really going to be watching. It's barely, almost, it never went to bearish, and we're pretty much back to neutral slash maybe eking out slight bullish. I'm in neutral mode. So do not turn any positions, if you're trying to grab this bottom, do not turn them into losers, because it's still got a lot of upside proving left to do. Especially if we get a 2 or 3 day bounce in the NASDAQ and then we roll back over. This is the area you don't want to get. You don't want to just stick your head in the sand and say this is going to 1400. You want to actively manage any buys you did today. I would be actively managing them as it continues to rally. So you're back above the 1 hour rotation zone, so that is in bullish mode. 15 minutes now crossed. Your key support level, I'm actually going to bump this back down. My bullish line of sand is about 1027. So even if we drop below there, I'll be watching to see if this little resistance becoming support shelves hold. If we start closing below there, where you don't want to see a close below, and you'll have to also manage this, is you don't want to see the close below the 62.5. So keep trailing that up. So as it makes new highs, if it does tomorrow, keep trailing that up, and that's your last line in the sand. That is your final line in the sand, so you can keep your risk. That doesn't mean you can't take profits before that on a partial position, but you don't want it turning back down, especially here, because that was a little retracement that's caught on this move. So you start rolling back over, you get a close below that level. You're a close below this little support shelf, and you're back. That's just not overly bullish then. Okay. But again, I'm still watching for a continued move. We finally closed into this clear path move right here. Got some minor resistance right here, but major, I'm just going to update the major stuff, is about 1078 area. Let's see, the 50%. So above there, and I'd watch the 50% retracement from this top to this bottom. And that could also be another great place to take some partial profits off, because you can always, if we continue to stay in bull mode, you can always look for another re-entry signal, but it never hurts, especially in this area between the 50 and the 62.5, to potentially lock in some of your profits if you got a decent buy signal down here. Okay, you want to take off some profits into strength. You don't want to wait till it rolls over to weakness. You can always trail your stop, and that will take you out if it rolls down to weakness. Reverse harmonics, if you get above that 50, 1094, 10 to 1097, that's a really great place to watch to see if we stall out there. Then we have 1110, and then we're into another clear path move to 1134. But I would not ignore 1122 before then. So pullbacks, as long as we don't, the Nasdaq is not getting hammered, and we don't roll over, and you don't see a lot of red across and momentum bars going to the downside, that you can look to buy some potential pullbacks, like especially to the 15-minute. If we dip into the 15-minute rotation zone, let's say you gap up tomorrow, you can look for a potential gap fill and then re-add to a position if you are looking for something, and manage a tight stop there. Why am I not just screaming, raging bull? Because we got some bullish signals to be tightly managed, and we still have earnings coming out, whether to be at the end. Has anybody seen a revised earnings date yet? Still, okay, it says January 27th now. So is that the official one they announced? I knew they were going to move it, but is the 27th? So we have that coming up, but we still have to watch the NASDAQ. If the NASDAQ rolls back over and they start selling, I can't really say they, if high growth momentum stocks start getting sold again, then you really have to manage any bullish position very closely, because we could roll over. Let's see what questions. So wavy's above 1080 for bull mode. Actually, yeah, I'm in bull mode a little before then. Hey, Sonic. How you doing today? Hey, Dave. How are you? What's up, Amit? Can you please bring him on Tesla, please? I can try it. He starts winding down, though. This is 5:30 Eastern time. It's a 6, and he's doing stuff with his family at night, so I don't know if he'll join this. Hey, Jake. I missed the trade. 1 hour, I'm out. I missed the trade. That's fine. If you miss a trade, remember, Ken, if you miss a trade, it's a break-even trade. You don't have to catch every trade. Let's see. Buy above 8 EMA close on rotation back up. That's not a signal for me. I'd rather trade the shorter, you start getting back above the 8 EMA. I assume you mean on the daily. You could just watch for pullbacks into the shorter rotation zones and a rotation back up. That's what I would watch for at this point. Can I explain what's a 1 hour buy signal? I'll be releasing the rules on that in the course. Coco, we got to do those in. I'm not going to do them in Tesla. Please just put the. I'll do them tomorrow in market overview. They weren't in the market overview before, so I can do them in market overview for you. Just put that thing. Same thing. Thank you, Shashi, for reminding him. Then they were not listed. I saw your things. Can you review those stocks? Those stocks weren't listed. I will scroll back through all the chat. Is it too late to get into daily considering the price is so high? Is it too late to get in on a daily considering the price is so high? I'd be looking to get in on a shorter term signal at this point. You still technically have a daily buy if it closes tomorrow above Friday's high. However, your reward to risk is going to be really iffy with this push down because before the stock had to be below Friday's low, now it has to be below this low. So you have a fair amount of risk. So I'd be looking for another shorter term signal to get in on. Oh, it's 1 day earlier, so it's sorry. Thanks, Wavy. So that's their official earnings is January 26th. They have not updated then trading view yet. It still says the 20. Well, before it said February 2nd, so now it's the 26th. Thank you for that update. So we'll watch for then. We have a number of trading days before then. I'm working on it slowly, guys. I'm trying to do my stuff, trying to manage it. I'll be releasing the doubles first. I have to redo a bunch of the charts and everything. I build a lot of stuff by hand. Can you give your thoughts on Tesla long-term consolidation or potential trend change? Longer term thoughts, you have the longer term, unless the market really stabilizes, you have the longer term weight of the NASDAQ and growth momentum stocks against it. So there will be some bullish rallies which can be played, but it's not just buy and hold and just hold it and forget it. These positions now have to be managed more closely. Even if Tesla goes up going into earnings, even if it gets back above this high of 1208, I'm not in the super bullish camp where we're going to see 1400, 1600, 1800. I'd be watching to take off some profits and roll over, especially with weakness in the NASDAQ. So I'm more, you got to play the shorter term plays. And if we then break down, again, you just don't fight the momentum lower and you wait for another bottoming signal. And until then, we're still in consolidation. I mean, this is just this has turned into a huge consolidation pattern. And you see here, you want your line in the sand now, it's about 951. That'll keep rising, but you get a close on a weekly basis below 951. Then I will be back into more of a bearish mode where I'll start watching for a lower price action overall. Coco's asking, anyone here bought the dip today? I think there were some people in there. I mean, there were some good signals today. Shashi said yes. Mike, on the 4 hour signal, would you place initial stops below the 4 hour candle or close below the 62.5 of today's rally? At this point now, I would place a stop below the 62.5 of today's rally. Initially, it would be under the 4 hour candle. Now I just trail at least your major position on the 62.5. And I would look to now, if we start getting major selling in the NASDAQ again, I'd look to move that stop up in front of that level. You could keep a little on but down there, but I'd look to take some more off at a higher stop level. Within the group's chats, Tesla signs is breaking down. We know when to get out. All right. I bought over 1010 Friday's low, but sold before the close, looking to get back in over 1080. Well, there's Wavy's game plan. So overall, if you want to know my perspective, you can still take some aggressive buy signals, especially after a decent sell-off. Uh, However, it has to be managed very closely. Why? For the people who don't want to tune into the market overview, which you can, this is the NASDAQ chart. Especially if you start seeing the NASDAQ drop back below the 62.5 or even drop back below this trend line with a lot of red, you don't want to, that's going to drag a lot down of momentum growth stocks. So you don't want to be trying to hold something. And as I'm going to reiterate this once more, don't turn. Let's say you got in something, let's hypothetically say you got in on this 1 hour signal at 1027 area. It's at 1058. Okay, I would not, you can trail some on the 62.5, but this is where I like to lock in some profits. So even if it comes back down, you're trailing on that 62.5 of this run up. This is also why I like to lock in profits. Okay, especially in the strength tomorrow, because you lock in something and then hopefully you locked in enough, even if you're going to trail below the 62.5, that if it comes back down, closes back below that, you're stopped out at worst for a net break even on your overall position. Okay, especially in these markets, I do love to trail out because we don't know when it's going to roll over again. So don't be afraid. Even locking in does not have to happen at once. Let's say you put on 10 shares. You could take, two off, two off, two off. We're back. We're getting into a super bull trend. We've got a nice pullback. Put two on, rally back up, take two off, pull back, put two on. You see how you don't have to, it doesn't have to be, I bought in with 10 shares. Where do I take off all 10 shares? Because that's, you're then trying to call a top or bottom. So think about that with your trading plan. Okay? Now, if you only have one share, it gets more difficult. If you have two shares, at least you get two decision points. You can take one off at some point, especially as you get to overbought, especially if you start getting overbought on the 4 hour, or even, you start getting more overbought on the one, it's getting to overbought, but you start getting up to above this 90% on the 1 hour, maybe you take one off, lock something in, and then trail out with the other one. I can't manage. Again, this is why people want all the buy and sell signals, but I can't manage everybody's position and everybody's risk tolerance and everybody's size and everybody's time frame. You got to learn to fish. So I'm trying to help people learn to fish. Let's see. Where would you set your stop had you gotten in at 1025? 1025, that's, I pretty much went over that 1027, 1025. I'd still, at this point, I'd be unwinding a bit tomorrow on a move up, so then at least I'd keep my 62.5% stop. Right now, overnight, I'd keep a little risk on if you didn't take any off going into the close. I'd keep a little risk on, but your risk is 1010 approximately on a closing basis, 1009, 1010. Disaster stop, I just make this $1,000 mark. So worst case, you'd have a $25 stop per share. And on a closing basis, if it closed just below that 1010, you'd have a $15 stop. Now, this is where if you like to take something off, even if you took something off, let's say now post-market or pre-market, let's say it opens at 1060 or 1066 at pre-market. You lock something in. So let's say you got in hypothetically with two shares at here, at this 1025, we'll just use your price, and you got out at 1065, okay? That's $40. So even if you put your stop below here on your remaining share, let's say you lost, let's even say 1,000 on just a trade basis. So you got, let's say it came back down, you lose $25 on one share, but you locked in 40 on another, so you're still net 15 positive. And if it keeps going, you just keep trailing your stop up. And when we start getting in more overbought and potential reversal areas or topping patterns, that's where I won't keep trailing below the 62.5. I will more aggressively raise up a stop because let's say we're all the way up here. Let's say we get all the way up here to this 1133 area again. You think I'm going to risk it all the way back down to 1038? No. Okay? Because we have other lines in the sand that we can watch for that if we start breaking below, we can more aggressively move up a stop. In pre-market NASDAQ, if there's weakness, it gives a signal 67% probability can be expected of hitting up or down. What's pre-market in NASDAQ? In pre-market and NASDAQ. Well, since NASDAQ, if you're watching the futures, they pretty much trade nearly 24 hours, and you have the European session going strong. If you have a lot of weakness and then it continues into the US session, that's where you got to be really careful. If you get weakness off the open and you start getting downside momentum bars like we had today. Other than that, that's where, and I won't really watch. I'll keep an eye on Tesla pre-market, but you really got to watch for that open. And yeah, that far down, yes, that's my line in the sand. But I just went over again how you can unwind part of your position. So even if it reverses back down there, you don't have a lot at risk. And then as it continues to rally, you'll want to more aggressively move up your stop as it hits key levels. I get you raise your stop as price action goes up. Thanks for clarifying. I'm thinking that if I buy at 1025, I should set my initial stop around 1020. If you're scalping, then you can't take a trade off of 1 hour because you can't keep a stop that close on a 1 hour. That wouldn't even be a 5 minute stop in this stock for me. That's trying to get so cute with your moves. I mean, even look at this volatility on a 5 minute basis. So you had those double bottom momentum in NASDAQ. You got a little pullback. Look at the pullback on your 5 minute chart. And this, we pulled back from 1013 just on a candle basis to about 996. I don't know how you can keep a $2 or $3 stop on this stock. I can't be that accurate with timing. You have bars, mini 5 minute bars that are more than that much. So you got to give the market leeway. So if you're worried, you position size based off your risk. So you're always risking the same amount. I got to do a class on that one day. On this, I got to do a class where show you how to position size in your risk, so you can use you down your position size, you trim your position size, so you can trade with larger stops, and you're still risking the same. Okay, you don't. That's where I think people get confused. You lower your position size and then have wider stops, but your risk is the same. Okay, because your risk is always based off your entry versus your stop price multiplied by the number of shares you have. So for wider stops, you have smaller shares, and your risk is still technically the same. I think most people trade way too large, and that's why they want way too tight stops, but it's a lot harder to trade with tight stops. It is a lot harder to trade with tight stops. I get stopped out when scalping calls put too often. I don't have them set far enough. Yeah, and you're trying to get too cute. And you'll get chopped to death, and you'll end up losing more money. Wavy says you have to use wider stops. So smaller position size, wider stops. Your still risk is the same. Okay. For example, if I go in, let's say I was going in with $100 shares with a $1, 100 shares with a $1 stop. What's my risk? $100, right? If I went in with the 10 shares at $10, stop, what's my risk? $100. Which is a better stop to use? The $10 stop. I'm still only risking the same amount. It's just I give the trade more room to work. If anybody can be accurate with a $2 or $3 stop in Tesla, then okay, but I don't know how you're getting anything done. See, I just went over it. I'll have to do this. You always have to watch the broader market. Yeah, it's position sizing. Position sizing is so key. You know, if enough people request that, maybe we'll do a special live stream, like on a weekend or something. And, if you want to chip in some donations for my time, I'll do a specific live stream on position sizing. Let me know. Okay. Where people get in trouble is they want to trade big and they want to use tight stops. And it's really hard to trade that way. They want to overtrade the size of their account, so they need to use very tight stops, but it makes trading a lot harder. You got to give trades room to work. Everybody just expects, like I got message today on the 1 hour buy signal, like this. It triggered. It pulled all the way back to what was the low here? It pulled all the way back to 1,005, and it was at what? The trigger was at 1,027. That's $22 risk. I can't take that kind of risk. Look at this. This is peanuts in the scheme of Tesla. If you can't take $22 of risk, you probably shouldn't be trading Tesla. You probably shouldn't be trading. You should probably trade a lot smaller and a lot more stable stock, but this is not a big pullback. People just expecting I buy here and then it goes straight up, or I sell here and it goes straight down. That's not the way trading works 90% of the time. Okay? Uh, that's good, Jake. Wider stops are better. Just trade smaller with wider stops. You have the same dollar risk. I want people to really understand that. You're welcome, Shashi. You think in terms of dollar risk and manage your stop and your size accordingly. Decide your risk per trade. If it's $100 per trade, well, you know where your stop is, and say, okay, based off where I'm getting in and based off where my stop is, I'm risking $100 on this trade. So therefore, I can only trade this number of shares, because if I get in here and it goes to here, for example, if I got in at 1050 and my stop's at 1,000 and I have $100 risk per trade, that's $50 a share. I can trade 2 shares only. If I get in at 1050 and I get out at 1,000 on 2 shares, it costs me $100. Now, if I have that same trade and I get in and I say my entry's at 1050 and my stop's at 1025, I'm now at $25 a share. I could trade 4 shares. Why? Because if I get in at 1050 with 4 shares and it goes down to 1025 and I get stopped out, I've lost $25 a share times 4 shares. That's the same $100. Now the problem comes to the person who says, I want to trade 100 shares and I only want to risk $100. Well, then you have a dollar stop. Now you tell me how accurate you can be with a dollar stop. I mean, you got to be insanely accurate, which is not going to simply happen. And Goldman raised his price target earlier today. That was already baked in before. So, well, I wouldn't say the risk is the same, Dave. 2 shares or 4 shares with this different stop size, the risk is the same. Now, the difference between the trades are one gives you more wiggle room. Okay? Why? Because the tighter the stop, the more accurate you have to be. For example, if you're getting into that 1 hour signal and you said, well, I can only have a stop to I want 100 shares, but I'm only going to risk $1 stop. Versus, okay, I'm getting in on the signal, and if it gets below this low at 979, well, or let's just call it 980. So we got in at 1,025, 980. That's $45 a share. You want $100 risk. You could trade 2 shares, right? So who do you think's more likely of making money on that using that 1 hour signal? The person who's trading 2 shares because that's roughly 90 bucks a risk, which is close enough to 100, or the person who says I'm going to get in with 100 and only risk $1. Who got stopped out? Who's still in it? Right there. It gives you more probabilities for success. It's still based off what kind of entry signals you're using and everything else. But wider stops gives you more to trade, more room to move back and forth. Okay. Now there are some instances where you use tighter stops, like there are shorter term signals that you can use tighter stops. For example, when I talked about the momentum thing, but that just means you can trade more size then. So let's say you're in here. Let's say, okay, we're doing this momentum play, stop below, let's just call it 995. And you got in on this rotation back up at 1,005. You're risking 10 bucks, let's just say. And your risks now is $100 still. Now you can trade 10 shares because it makes sense to have a tighter stop here. That's where the price action and the strategy is saying, okay, this warrants a tighter stop. Why? Because if it rolls over and goes back below this level, the 62.5 level's been broken. And if you want to say, well, that's on a closing basis, then take it down to here on a share basis and add 10 more bucks of risk in there and adjust your size accordingly. So maybe you trade 9 or 8 shares. But that's where it's warranted to have a tighter stop. But on a 1 hour time frame, if you're trying to use $1 stop, you're insane. I don't like stop losses. Well, you better get used to, and I'm not saying you have to put them in the market, but you better get used to stop losses. Stop losses will keep you around to trade because you're not always going to be right or wrong on any given trade. You got to learn stops. Why not buying the dip and where's the dip? A lot of people buying the dip. So which dip? You have to have a signal. Okay? You have to have a signal. So you're buying a signal. Yeah, I mean you're buying a pattern. Why not just buy the dip? Was this the dip? Was this the dip? Was this the dip? Was this the dip? Which dip are you buying? And you have to have a stop on anything. At least you don't have to put it in the market, but you need to know where you're wrong. Let's say you thought this was a dip. Are you still holding? Because that's an insane way to blow up your account. All right, that's about it for today. Yeah, and let me know if everybody wants to, if we want to do some session on position sizing, let me know. You can always put stuff in Discord, but somebody keep track of how many people want that because that will take some time. And with that, well, if the CPI comes in very hot, that could be a rollover moment. Remember, I put this in the other one. Remember, we have Wednesday we have CPI and Thursday we have PPI. If those come in very hot, that can cause a rollover. That's why I'm watching this bounce really closely. Tomorrow we have the Fed speakers, which I'm not expecting them to disrupt the market, but this is where a trail will stop, especially going into Wednesday and Thursday morning, because that could cause a rollover. It's Powell's confirmation hearing. So I doubt he'll say anything that's going to... if you were going into a confirmation hearing, are you going to say something that could tank the market? I wouldn't, but we'll see. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining, and I'll talk to everyone later. Bye for now.